The NFL has 8 new head coaches that have been hired, and I'm going to be ranking all of them from least confident to most confident. Which coaches do I believe have the best chance to succeed? Which coaches do I believe are going to fail and land flat on their face? And this is going to be ranked in 3 tiers. Tier 3 is won't succeed. I don't believe you're going to succeed at all. Tier 2 is you might succeed. There's just a couple of factors that give me a little bit of concern for why you might fail. And then tier 1 is I believe you're going to succeed. There's no way you fail at all. Let's get into it. So tier 3, these coaches, I believe they aren't going to succeed. And we got to start off with Jerod Mayo. The reason why I got him on this list is because he doesn't have a lot of experience as a coach in general. Yeah, he has shared duties as a defensive coordinator, but he pretty much is Bill Belichick's understudy. And Bill Belichick doesn't have a good coaching tree. His best coach under him from that tree has been Brian Flores, and he's a defensive coordinator right now. Jerod Mayo, I like him as a person. I think he's a really good leader, but I don't know if this is the right dude to turn around the Patriots franchise. 7, the Commanders hired Dan Quinn as their head coach. I believe that was a lateral move. I don't really get the big difference between Dan Quinn and Ron Rivera. Both coaches went to a Super Bowl, didn't have any success after, haven't been able to make good hires when it comes to their offensive coordinators. Although Cliff Kingsbury is a really good hire, are you going to be able to get quarterback right? And his defense, when he was the head coach in Atlanta, was only elite for only 1 season. So Dallas, yeah, he was really good during his time being the DC for them the last couple of seasons, but their defense got exposed anytime they went up against a remotely good offense. They got shredded by the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday night, and they got shredded in their embarrassing loss to the Packers and Jordan Love in the wild card round. I don't trust Dan Quinn as a head coach, and this is an ownership group that has a lot of money, and they had a lot of guys involved in making the decision to bring in Dan Quinn, but they hired the former general manager of the Golden State Warriors to help with the football decisions. Like, that makes no damn sense to me. What does an NBA guy have any knowledge of how the NFL works, of how to build an NFL team? Now, maybe the dude they have watches a little bit of football. I would think that if you work in basketball, you would at least watch a little bit of football in your free time, but I don't know. You know, the Commanders ownership group, they got a lot of money, but it just seems like they're just throwing money just to throw money. They're getting a lot of opinions in the room, and I don't think this was a good hire. I really don't. Bill Belichick would have been a way better hire if you were going to go this route. At 6, Antonio Pierce. Y'all aren't going to like this one, but the reason why he's in this tier isn't because I don't think that he has a chance to succeed, but it's just because he probably has the most impossible situation to have success in out of all the new head coaches who've gotten hired during this cycle. He's in the AFC West when you got to go against Patrick Mahomes twice a season. You got to go up against Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert now twice a season. You aren't finna put 40 on them like how you did on Brandon Staley and company at halftime. This is a way different team, and Jim Harbaugh is a proven coach. This isn't a first-time head coach who never coached in the NFL before. His first time coaching in the NFL, you know what he did? He took the 49ers from the pit of despair and took them to 3 straight NFC championships and a Super Bowl appearance. He knows he knows how to build a winning football team. You want to know why he's going to succeed? Because he's won everywhere that he's been. Antonio Pierce had a little bit of success as the interim head coach of the Raiders last season. But you were going against an AFC West that was really down. Everybody's going to be better. And every coach in this division outside of Antonio Pierce is proven. And he has a lot of guys on the staff with him, helping him out, giving him advice. But this is a really tough situation for a young head coach like Antonio Pierce with not a lot of experience to be in right now. We don't know what the hell they're going to do at quarterback. It's really hard to see Antonio Pierce having success. Not because I don't think he's capable. if he was in the AFC South or the NFC South, I would have him in tier 2. But the AFC West is just so tough as a division right now with the coaches and the two good quarterbacks that you got to deal with twice a season. I can't see Antonio Pierce having success in Vegas. I like him. I want him to succeed. I hope that I'm wrong, but it's tough. Now, for our next tier, tier 2. These are coaches that, like I said earlier, I believe they could succeed, but there's a few factors that they're dealing with that give me reasons to believe that it could go either way. Now, first of all, this was a hire that I really liked. It was a hire that was good for the young quarterback that they drafted last year, and that's Brian Callahan with the Tennessee Titans. He's been the offensive coordinator of the Bengals since Zach Taylor first got hired by Cincinnati, and he never called plays, but he was part of the game plan, the scouting. He did play a major part in Joe Burrow's development. He never called plays before, which is a little bit of pause, but there's been head coaches who've never called plays before who've been pretty good at it, such as Mike McDonald with the Miami Dolphins. Brian Callahan also has his dad, who is the offensive line coach now for the Tennessee Titans. So the biggest problem with Tennessee's offense, outside of the lack of talent that they've had, has been the lack of good offensive line play. And Brian Callahan bringing his dad along should help fix that. But what about the defense? And what about Will Levis? You know, Brian Callahan, I think he could do some good things with Will Levis, but could Will Levis truly ascend into an elite quarterback, or will he just become a marginally okay quarterback? Another thing with Brian Callahan is that he doesn't really have any say in anything with the team. Rand Carthon has been their GM for 2 years now, and he just got promoted to another higher ranking inside of the organization, which he also not only has say in assembling the roster and the personnel on the team, but he's the dude hiring the coaching staff. So maybe Rand Carthon has a little bit too much control for my liking, and with him having so much control, I don't know if Brian Callahan is going to be able to succeed completely with Rand Carthon basically being the dude calling the shots, making the decisions, assembling the team, assembling the staff, and Brian Callahan making it work. So I really don't know. But I do like the hire. I just don't have a high feeling that it's going to succeed. Raheem Morris was a really interesting hire because a lot of people thought that Bill Belichick was going to be the dude calling the shots in Atlanta, but Bill Belichick wanted a lot of power. He wanted a lot of say. Raheem Morris, according to some reports out there, was the guy who they originally wanted to hire before they hired Arthur Smith, because he was the intern, he was cool with people in the building, had a good energy, but they went with Arthur Smith. They come back to Raheem Morris, who is one of the more respected coaches in all of the NFL. And you can say the Falcons probably should have hired the offensive guy, but Raheem Morris also, during his time when he was with the Falcons under Dan Quinn, he was also helping with the receivers. He was assistant coach on the offensive staff as well. So he has a good knowledge of offense and defense, more knowledge of defense, but he's not like a novice on offense, like how most of these defensive-minded coaches are. And he should understand what he needs to succeed, which is a quarterback. And there are pieces there for him to succeed. But even though I like the hire, I have him in tier 2 because he doesn't have a proven track record of being a successful head coach. When he was the head coach back in Tampa Bay, he was only 33 years old, so he was young. And we're going to see how he looks the second go around, but the majority of times when you hire a second chance head coach, the only ones that end up being somewhat successful are the ones that have been to a Super Bowl before. Other than that, when you have a head coach that's never won before, most of the times they end up still continuing not to win. Look at Dennis Allen. He went 9-8. They still missed the playoffs in the division that they were favored to win. Nobody expected the Buccaneers to be that good. Hell, even Todd Bowles. You know, he's a second chance head coach, and he's not even the greatest out there. So second chance head coaches aren't really all that good unless they are head coaches that have been to a Super Bowl before, like Doug Peterson, Andy Reid. And not everybody is Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll. But Raheem Morris, he has a pretty solid team to work with in terms of young talent. You know, I do think he's a really good fit character-wise. It's just that he just doesn't have that proven track record. And I don't know if he is really for certain going to work and be successful as Atlanta's head coach. Dave Canales comes in at number 3. Dave Canales was one of the best hires of this cycle. The only reason he's not in tier 1 for me is because he's coaching under the most dysfunctional ownership in all of the NFL now that Dan Snyder is out of the league. And many people consider David Tepper to be the second coming of Dan Snyder. And Dave Canales, he has a really good opportunity to take what people believe to be an undesirable job and make it a franchise where they could end up having a lot of success for at least a decade, because they did draft Bryce Young, and I don't care what anybody says, Bryce Young was a generational quarterback. There's a reason why he went number 1 overall with that small of a frame. You feel me? And he was done wrong by the bad hire that they made with their previous head coach, Frank Reich. And I thought that Frank Reich was going to be a good hire. But the dude just was so old that he just lost all touch with how to build an offense around a young quarterback. And he had nothing to work with. Dave Canales was part of resurrecting the career of Geno Smith when he was with the Seattle Seahawks. He also resurrected Baker Mayfield's career. The Buccaneers only got Baker Mayfield because he was the only halfway decent quarterback that they could afford with their cap situation. The run game under Dave Canales in Tampa Bay this past season wasn't ideal, but that's because that was a team that struggled to run the football last year. Their offensive line wasn't good when it came to run blocking, but they were really good throwing the football. If the ownership doesn't end up being Dan Snyder bad and they can stay out the way and let Dave Canales and the GM make the decisions, this should work. This could be the equivalent maybe to when Sean McVay went to the Rams and saved Jared Goff. Jared Goff, like Bryce Young, was a first overall pick who had a really disappointing rookie season. He had bad coaching, a bad staff, and people gave up on him. And Sean McVay came in and turned him into something special. And now we see how good Jared Goff is right now. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 conference championship games. You need good coaching to succeed. And Trevor Lawrence was done bad by terrible coaching when he had Urban Meyer. And when he got Doug Peterson, we seen how better Trevor Lawrence has looked since. So as long as David Tepper can stay out the cookie jar and he lets Dave Canales do his thing, doesn't take a lot of control of decisions and whatnot, I believe Dave Canales can work. That's the only reason he's not in tier 1 for me. Tier 1, these are the coaches that I believe are going to succeed. We're going to start off with Mike McDonald with the Seattle Seahawks. He's been the defensive coordinator the last 2 seasons for the Baltimore Ravens. And the reason why I got so much confidence that he's going to succeed is because what did he do so well in Baltimore? He got the most out of the young talent on that team and some of the older talent on that team. Like Jadeveon Clowney had arguably the best season of his NFL career, and he's past 30 years old. Kyle Hamilton, the young safety that they drafted in the first round out of Notre Dame, a lot of people had some concerns about. Some people felt he was boom or bust. Mike McDonald put him in a system that best used his skill set. The problem with Seattle the last decade has been that their defense has pretty much been non-existent. You're getting a guy in Mike McDonald who can take advantage of all the young talent that you've drafted on that defense side of the football and turn it into elite talent. Look at Devon Witherspoon. Look at Boye Mafe. Tyreek Woolen. There are so many young, talented players on the Seahawks defense that a lot of people don't know about because the defense that Pete Carroll has been running the last couple of years has been mildly outdated. Mike McDonald, he might be able to save Jamal Adams and turn what looks like one of the worst trades in NFL history into a somewhat halfway decent trade. Mike McDonald also is getting an offense that your only question is, how are you going to address the quarterback position long term? Because Geno Smith is still good enough to be the starting quarterback for you next year. But ideally, you will want to get younger at that position. You still have a really good offensive line. You got two very good young tackles, Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas. So the offensive line is damn near complete. Good running backs, great receivers. You nailed the offensive coordinator hire, and you do what you do best on defense. The Seahawks could be a Super Bowl contender as soon as next season under Mike McDonald in his first season. That's how good of a coach this dude is. He's considered to be the Sean McVay of defensive coaches. So if that title holds true, Seattle could find themselves in the Super Bowl. And you guys know who has to be number one. Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh was the best hire. This is the best head coach that the Chargers have ever had, and it's going to work. You want to know why? Because there's nowhere that Jim Harbaugh has coached where it hasn't worked. He's won everywhere that he's been. San Diego State, Stanford. He took the 49ers from the pits of irrelevancy to 3 straight NFC championship games and a Super Bowl appearance. And then he resurrected Michigan football. He's the best head coach that Michigan has ever had. Took them to 3 straight NFC, three straight Big Ten championships and a national championship. It's not one of those things where you're hiring a college coach that has never coached in the NFL before. You don't know if it's going to work out. This is going to work. Why? Because it's worked everywhere that he's coached. He has a great quarterback in Justin Herbert. Yeah, this Chargers team that we see right now may not be the same team that is on the field when the 2024 season kicks off, but Jim Harbaugh, his philosophy, the way he goes about winning wherever he goes, it works everywhere. And there's no reason to expect it won't work when he's getting a quarterback as talented as Justin Herbert. The Chargers have always had talent. The problem has been they've never had great coaching. So these are my rankings of all of the 8 NFL head coaching hires, ranked from who I feel is going to fail, who might succeed, to the 2 coaches in Jim Harbaugh and Mike McDonald, who I believe will succeed. Leave your comments down in the comment section down below. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to agree with me.